All right, we might look to make a start. Are you all good to go, Tom?
Yep, just let me
You should be able to share your screen. All right. So welcome to tonight's presentation. We're lucky enough to have Tom Carroll, who coaches our Division 2 men, and he's been a long time VJBL coach as well. I had the privilege of working with Tom. He got me started with my youth league coaching, I guess to say, and got me exposed into that and got me to helped me to get to where I am now. So I'm really intrigued to see what Tom's going to come up with, and I've taken things from being with Tom as well. So hopefully you guys get a lot out of it as well. So I'll hand over to Tom, and thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, Locke. First off, just thank everyone for coming, because it's easy to switch off with all the uncertainty of if we'll be back, when we'll be back, and all that sort of stuff. So good job with, and more to everybody that's turned up, to everyone. Also, just quickly take a chance to thank Drew, Locke and Jess mainly for all the clinics and stuff you guys have done. You've done far more than what I have, obviously, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. So Locke just mentioned then about how we worked together in the youth league program the last 2 years, saying that he worked under me. That's not the case at all. We worked together. Apart from when he went on his honeymoon, we went undefeated while he was away. But what I'm going to go through tonight is what Locke and myself took into the youth league program, things that I look at for myself. So if you are probably coaching under 12s and under, I would be recommending that you watch Drew, Jess's and Lockie's stuff flat out. Under 12s and above, you'll get something out of it. It's more about or everything that's there, establishing values and culture. So contents for discussion. Now, just before I start with that, with the Zoom stuff now, if there's anything that you want to ask throughout, butt in, please cut me off. There's no politeness. I'd rather be stopped and we just have a discussion rather than it be me talking for however long, because that can go for a while. So things that we'll cover, why people start coaching, what do we want our teams to look like, what are our values, what are my values, breakdown of team values, how to introduce, implement and monitor team values, and then some stories and questions at the end if needed. So first one, why do we start coaching? As I've said there, people begin coaching for endless amount of reasons, but I think it's important to always reflect on what that reason is. So there's a few reasons there, but reason why I say that is because sometimes coaches are going to lose their way a little bit, get caught up in things that don't really matter. But if you can go back to that first training session you've taken, the first clinic that you worked at, and remember that, why you got into it, and also why you're coaching the team you're coaching now. So a few examples that I've said is that you have a kid on the team, you want to help out, you love the sport, you can no longer play or you can no longer play any good. You enjoy the team environment, enjoy the club environment, would like to challenge yourself, you want to impact people, and it's a hobby and a reason to get out of the house. So my one, I guess, wasn't a fantastic player, but was always a handy leader. And then coached a domestic team that I enjoyed. It was probably the only time I enjoyed getting up early on a Saturday morning. And then once I was asked to assist and help out everywhere, I wanted to coach as many teams as I could and found some enjoyment in it. So for me now, there's times where I'll be laying in bed and I'm thinking, shit, do I really want to do this anymore? Is it something that I need to be doing? But when I think back to that, it puts a lot of stuff into perspective. And it's there as that sort of motivational tool. What do we want our teams to look like? So this can be your model when you're looking at selecting your team. It can be really based on basketball if you need it to be. So are you thinking I want my team to be super fast. Am I wanting to be a good shooting team or anything like that? But I'm trying to break it down to the values of the side. So the examples that I've given there, do we want our teams to be the team that wins the most, the team that has the most fun, the team that competes the hardest, team that is the most structured, most feared, team that doesn't really care about winning, the team that gets along the best, the team that plays the fairest, the team that plays the dirtiest? Now, I can honestly say that in my short coaching time, there's been a time where I've wanted to be every single one of them. I've wanted my teams, even if it's the dirtiest, that sort of goes in the most feared, I thought. Was it the right thing? No, looking back, it wasn't. I had a really big compliment, what was it, 2018 Big V awards dinner, where I was having a chat with a few players from opposition teams. There was 2 from Pakenham and 1 from Western Port. And the Western Port guy came over and basically stood there and slagged off his teammates and his coach for probably 3 to 4 minutes and then walked off. And I turned to the Pakenham guys and I said, is that how everything gets run? And they turned to me and said, no one gets along the way your team does, which was pretty good considering those who have been to them youth league games. There's about 400 people that we have sitting on the bench and involved in the program. If Locke's there, I'd like him to jump in because he's seen a pretty good one in an after match. Are you there, Locke?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you know the story I'm getting at there?
Is this with the bag?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we tell that one?
Yeah, you were there. So it was another compliment to how our group was and how we were seen from the outside.
Yeah. Well, we had our after-match function. We played against Craigieburn, and then we were just cleaning up, and there was a handful of the players around, and one of their guys came back in from Craigieburn and said, "Oh, I've lost my bag. I don't know where my bag is." And we're like, "Oh, we've cleaned up. There's no bags here." And we're like, "Oh, has one of your mates taken it? You know, as a bit of a joke. Like that's something we'll do around here. Is take a joke and see, you know, how long it takes to find it." And he's like, "Nah, we don't do anything like that. We're not like you guys. We don't. We just get in there, do what we need to do, and then get out." Which I didn't know was the case with most other places. I've only ever known it as a player, and I'm sure Tom's the same. We've always been an important part is being around that team environment and being with friends. So
well said. Now, one thing that I didn't touch on the slide just back, and it even goes into this one now. Why'd you start coaching? How do you want your team to look and all that? I was having a chat with Eric Plant. It wasn't long ago. It would have been in the last 3 months. And those who know him, this wouldn't surprise you at all. But I said to him, how come I never hear any stories out of him about big games they've won, championships they've won, or whatever? And he said to me, he goes, my championships are won every summer when I'm still hanging out with all my teammates and our kids are all friends now. So I know we're getting away from basketball and it's not like this is how you win games, this is how you win games, but this is how you get the buy-in, is when you can make that environment where you get this. I'd like to know, or I'm confident that you guys, especially domestic coaches, you see it a lot, but you'll be able to go through that list and nearly be able to tick off each team and say, yep, I know which one that is, I know which one that is, I know which one that is. And I guess my thing is what do you want yours to be? So have that as a reflection question also.
I think, Tom,
yep.
I think a really good message out of that list that you've got right there is that it's okay to be different. You don't have to be the team that has to win all the time, or you don't have to be the team that, you know, is the most structured or whatever it is. And it's okay to be different. But you've got
Absolutely.
to do you and what suits your team. Yeah.
My message throughout this whole thing will be don't try and be something you're not. I've tried to be super, super hard and scary, and it's not me. I'm better when I'm having a laugh, but can be stern at the same time. So you're absolutely spot on, Drew. It's fine to be different, but what is that different? So now, what are our values? Now, this is something that I've done it a few times actually, that up to you guys. I'm going to get through this pretty quick. But that link there is, I'll take you to a website. It's got hundreds of sort of values and things that there's a long list there. So what this will do is it will help you pick out 5. So you'll go through the list, you'll just tick off everything that you think is you. And then that will get you down to, this is the example that the website had, that will get you to part 2. So part 2 is all them values you can see in the bottom right corner. And then what you're going to do in part 2 is group all of them that are similar. So you'll be able to see the 5 columns there where they're all similar. And then finally, you'll choose one within each group. And that's normally, that can sum you up. I can put that link in the chat later on if you want it, but it's quite a good exercise. I've done it. I've got my partner to do it with, see what matches up. I've had to do it for schoolwork and everything as well. It's quite good. Now, my 5 that I ended up with were loyalty, love, well-being, thankfulness, joy. Now, if you watch me coach, whether it's a training session, game, before game, after game, you'll see most of that come out with everything that's delivered. You'll see that I'll be hugging lots. I'll be trying to make jokes at times. You won't see me wound up for the full 40 minutes. There'll be a few times where a call won't go my way or something, and I'll sook it up a fair bit. But yeah, they're the 5 that I've ended up with. Now, at the bottom, so that's the youth league squad that Locke and I were working with together. We had that written on our whiteboard at every single game. So they were our 5: energy, tougher, smarter, effort, and the big one was being together. So what we would do, and you'll see this on the next slide, but we would have them written at the bottom, and at the end of each game, we come in and we either tick or cross the box of how well we've gone, and we'll talk about stuff that's gone on during the game that has made that evident. So you see someone dive out of bounds and put their head through a wall, well, he's probably gone with the effort, the energy, and the tougher, and we highlight that. So on the next one, I'm going to show you what our whiteboard would look like. Bit crazy there, but so top left corner, we have our matchups. So how the game's going to start, what our starting 5 are, who they're going to start on if they start the same as what they have been. Understand that's not the case with juniors, and but you can still just put your starters there. Below that would have key statistics that the other team has, what they shoot from the 3-point line, what players come off the bench and contribute quite a fair bit for them. We have at the top a defensive strategy and our offensive strategy dependent on the team. And then in that purple part is diagrams of where we can draw stuff up on the court. Now, at the bottom, you'll see them 5 values. Again, they are there every single game. As long as a place provides a whiteboard, they're there, because what the motto is there is if one of them boxes is crossed and you take that out, it doesn't care what's written above it. So you take that out, the whole lot of it's just going to fall out, just going to funnel through it. And we've seen it where we've lowered our colours at times, say we weren't smart, and then it can be one act. It really can be. So in the 2 years with Locke and I there, I think we ticked all 5 boxes once where we lost. So, and reason being is it doesn't matter that I'm not saying that them five values are going to win you every game, but it was what we believed in. So you could have something completely different there, but as long as you get your team, your coaches, your team managers, your parents are buying in and understanding what their values are, it's a healthy process. Is there any questions or anything in regards to that at the moment, or comments before I
I'll
move
just
on?
probably jump in, Tom.
Yeah, go for it.
Just say, like, especially from working with you for so long, I've got a real insight to probably the most important one, and why it's probably in capitals is just that togetherness is massive.
Yeah, we are going to go over that, but you're spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know with that team we had, it wasn't the most. There were some good players, but there was other teams who had higher quality players, but our ability to stay together was something that, you know, made us different to everyone else, and was like a bit of our superpower. Just that way we all bonded together.
Yeah. We would have some videos somewhere, but I'm not sure whether they're appropriate. There might be a bit of Richmond theme song stuff happening, but what we would do at the end of the game is, as I said, we would go through all them boxes and say where we displayed that value. Now, when it got to the last one, normally I'd give the text to whether it was the captain, whether it was the first gamer, someone who had a blinder, someone who showed the values quite well. That box would get ticked and the room would go nuts. And it was the sense of achievement together. It was almost like as soon as we went into the change rooms, how did we go representing ourselves? And it would be stuff that you talk about during the game too. How are we going with this tougher box at the moment? We don't have anyone that's willing to wear a charge. All of a sudden you see someone driving a loose ball and wear a charge. So nothing to do with strategy, but at the same time, I don't think you can have strategy without it. So I'll move on now. Now we'll go through what them 5 things are. So things that we see as effort. Now there's plenty more than this. As I said, I had to sort of put it together again. So anyway, effort, you've got person who doesn't give up on a play, hustles back on defense, runs even when he knows he won't get the ball. I think that's a huge one, and especially with kids too, is they're only going to run if they get rewarded. Where if you can see somebody runs really hard to space the floor and it creates a layup for someone else, and we can highlight that, then I think that's a big thing. Gets floor burns, so prepared to dive on the floor all the time. Compete for the 4 minutes he's on there. Creates deflections, as I said before, dives out of bounds for loose ball, and plays through adversity. So plays through adversity is going to be in all 5 of our things, because it's something that we talk about as well that defines the character that we've got, and also a good measure of the resilience in the group that we've got. The next is tougher.
Tom?
Yep.
Peter, mate. All those things you're talking about, they're going to create more court time too.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, the harder they work at these things, the more court time they're going to earn off you, saying, well, this kid's going to put in for a good 20 minutes a game. Instead of the 4 minutes, he's gone to 20.
It will, but at the same time, what it does is it set a standard where if a kid does lose court time, and you can show, mate, you haven't shown us these values here. So it's clear we need you to run back on defense. You haven't got past halfway. We can allow ourselves to be upfront with that. You're completely spot on. I'll continue. Oh, before I do continue though, with Pete saying that, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but it's just come into my head how you used to give us the book, Pete, when you coached us. Now that book, we were given at the start of the year. We were told that it was our Bible. We would read it, but then we would go away from it. And what would happen is when something went wrong, that was where Pete would fire up and say, guys, come on, this is what we've spoken about. But it would never go through my head as a player to go through that. I probably had too big of an ego at the time to be thinking that them team rules, them team values first, which is the thing that I'm trying to go through. So it's not anything that's new. Off the top of my head, Pete, I can remember there was a Larry Bird quote in there, and there was the 3 R's. Am I pretty accurate there? Yeah, all right. So moving on, we got tougher, prepared to wear a charge, fights through screens, doesn't get sucked in by outside factors. Now, in seniors, that can be that there's a guy trying to just get under your skin. In juniors, this can be parents yelling out. It can be the big game where grandparents have turned up. It can be a lot of them things. Now, it's that mental toughness. How can you play when you've got a full stand for the 2 games that the kids get it for, really, for the season, and still listen to the coach, still stay calm and do all them things. Boxes out, doesn't shy away from the big guy, the biggest guy on the court. So prepared to, I'm not saying go and fight him, but prepared to drive at him, not scared of getting blocked, not scared of boxing him out, things like that. Continues to support their teammates no matter what. Now, reason why I've said that is it's to do with, let's say I'm playing with Drew and I've turned the ball over 3 times down the court and we're coming off in a timeout. Rather than Drew coming up and having a go at me, he puts his arm around me and says, come on, next one, we're going to score. All right, next one, let's find this option. That's supporting your teammate rather than coming off cracking it that I'm throwing the ball all over the gym. And then the bottom one, plays through adversity. All that stuff, it's the same in everything we talk about. They're the sort of players that we want playing, but they're the sort of the team and the culture that we want to create. Energy. Look at the player. Have a look at that. So you'll know I've put loud and vocal next to his name, but encouraging, positive, gives maximum effort, plays through adversity. So we would start every training session, and the drill we do is to get to a target, whether it be make 40 laps, make 10 jump shots. And me and Locke could sit there and turn our head and have no idea what we've scored, and all we would measure it on is what the room starts to feel like. Is the talk up? Are we vocal? Are there guys having fun at the start of the session? Because once that happens, everything's engaged. And you'll even see that at the end of our warm-up, they'll go and do horseshoe. None of that. I don't reckon anyone could tell you if they've missed a layup. All it is let's just go there and make some noise. Let's go there and encourage one another. Let's go there and be pests like the guy that's on the screen. But the big one that can get lost when you're trying to go with all this stuff is the positive stuff. That is just, it's huge. It's huge. Smarter. So the points there, being aware of the foul count. Now, with that, I'll always have somebody looking at that, because as a coach, you can get caught up. It's a good one for an injured player, good one for a team manager, something really, really basic that we do forget about, just being aware of what the foul count is. Adjust to how a game is being officiated. So I'm getting the years mixed up here, but 2018, we would have put up, in the youth league program, we would have put up the most 3-point shots by an absolute mile. We shot too many. First 2 games of 2019, I think we put up 12 or 15 across 2 games, because in that first quarter, we seen that the referees came out, they blew their whistle heaps, and we wanted to tick that smarter box. So all we had to do was dribble into the key and we're shooting free throws. I think we put up 45 free throws in our first game and close to that in our second game too. Follows instructions properly, whether that be a defensive assignment, how you want the boys to take the warm-up, either a set play that you're going to run. That's how you tick the smarter box. Not getting sucked into outside factors. That could even be the opposition coach yells out and says he can't go left. Who cares, right? It shouldn't affect you. That we just continue to play. We continue to play. Now the next one is the way I've spoken about the values. I've made it sound like it's all just our players, but there's been times where I've stood up in front of our team and I've crossed that smarter box because I haven't substituted properly. I've stayed in a defense too long. I've let my ego get in the way of what we're trying to do. So substituting and rotating effectively, just where we can reflect and look at ourselves a little bit. Awareness of strengths and weaknesses. So that might be, we have a 6-foot kid going up against a 4-foot kid. give him the ball. Give him the ball. It's as simple as that. Again, plays through adversity. Is there anything anyone wants to add or? No. Okay, final one together. As Locke spoke about before, this is our biggest thing. So we will harp on this every training session. So what comes under that is play egoless. Yes, you're going to have a player that scores more points than everyone else every now and then. You're not going to have, so in juniors, if you score 40 points, you win. You're not going to have an even spread of everyone scoring 5 or 6 points. But what that means is that we're still giving the ball off. Okay, we're still prepared to find our teammate. We're still prepared to do all the other things that we've spoken about, diving on loose balls. We're not going out there with an ego. Follow the 4 other values, which I've just spoken about. Don't withdraw from the group. Now, this is a huge one with everything, every level I've coached. So you can have an under-8 kid come off crying and want to go over to mum and dad. Don't withdraw from the group. If that's up to the coach, whether they allow mum and dad onto the bench, which, yeah, you can. That could be at under 12s. A kid thinks he's been fouled and hasn't and comes off the way I did when I was under 12 and kicks a drink bottle and goes to storm out of the stadium. Don't withdraw from the group. So that's where you've got to buy in. That's where you've got to engage. Okay, so we're looking for our teammates to give us a bit of a cuddle in that time. Have no gaps on the bench. As soon as I ever see that, you know a team's lost. You know they have. So make sure if you've only got 2 players on your bench, they're sitting on the seats next to each other. Something small, but it's one of our values. Continue to stay positive, which I've spoken about. Accept and deliver feedback appropriately. So that's similar to what I spoke about before with Drew. If I'm turning the ball over, he's not coming up to me and getting stuck into me. We're going to try and find a solution rather than identify the problem. And I have to be prepared to hear it because it's not always going to be the case. Club first, team first. So are you wearing your colours to the best you should? I'm sure Pete can talk about a few times where I didn't. But that's where we steer back. We haven't ticked the together box that game, but it doesn't mean we can't tick it for the season. And then again at the bottom, plays through adversity. So that is getting through adversity together. It's a common thing that I say to my team is a really good thing about basketball, about team sport, is you can deal with adversity with 9 of your best mates. Where in life, sometimes you're just going to get stuck on your own. Where when you turn up and you've lost 3 in a row and you haven't had a good training session, doesn't matter. You've still got each other and you're going to get through it with each other. I think that's a huge one. Is there anything good to move on? We don't have too long left, I don't think. Just let me. Okay, how to introduce, implement and monitor team values. Now, this is about how to get the buy-in, how I think. All right, the few things that I would do to try and get the buy-in. So understand yourself and your players. How do they learn and what motivates them? There's some players are going to need a cuddle, some are going to need a kick up the backside. These days, it's a lot of them need a cuddle, need to be told how good they are, but where do they fit in? How do they learn? Now, I meant to put a link in there. I had it in the first draft where you can go and do there's a test you can do. I think it's VARC. Like do you know what I'm talking about here? If you do, jump in. But there's a test where you will find out the best way for players to learn, whether it's demonstration, whether it's by pictures, whether it's by writing, things like that. You can shoot me a message or an email and I can get that link to you. No problems. Identify what sort of culture you want from a holistic perspective. So it's not saying, oh, we want to win. It's looking at it in in 4 years' time, what do you want the kids to think back of their time in that team? So is it that they had great teammates, they won a lot of games, they had a lot of fun, right? They've gained life lessons. There's so much you can take out of that. What sort of culture you want from a holistic perspective? Take basketball out of it. Developing kids, developing young adults, developing adults here. Now, this quote, it's in a book that I'll talk about a little bit later. I can't remember who it was, but we shape our values and our values shape us. So identifying what it is that you want out of your team, and even do that with your team. A lot of the kids will, in my experience, will just be deer in the headlights sort of stuff. But there's way you could sort of get it out. Are we having fun at training? Things like that. Are we trying to win lots? You'll be able to find the values there if you search. And then all of a sudden, so we shape our values and our values shape us. That's just what you're reflecting back to. As soon as you lower your colours, you're going to see that. I think it's a quote that I quite often turn back to. During training sessions and games, constantly ask your players if they're living up to them values. So most of the time you can make it a trick question. My one that I do a lot, I say it a lot, is if you had your time again, would you do that? And let's say the kid's run back really hard on defense and he's just not got there for a steal, but he's got a deflection that's gone out of bounds. So if you had your time again, what would you do different? And he'll be sitting there thinking, shit, well, do I run faster? And I'm like, nothing. Your effort was fantastic. You did it for the team. Okay. Your energy was brilliant. And it took a bit of toughness to get back. So constantly be asking the team that. Right, team comes off whinging. Right now, guys, are we together? Are we ticking that box? Well, no, we're probably not. All right. We've gone and we've sooked it up to the referees. Foul counts 5-1 because we're not playing smart. Are we ticking that box? Just constantly refer back to that when we can. Self-reflect on yourself. So take a few notes after a game. Doesn't have to be much. Can be talking into your phone, can be notes written on your phone, whatever it is, not after an essay, but did you tick the boxes? It can be as simple as that. Don't even have to write anything. Just, did you tick them? Did you tick 5? Did you get 4 out of 5? Ask for feedback from players and parents. Be prepared to cop it because that's what we've spoken about. That's what we spoke about in the Together stuff. We said that we were happy to give feedback and get feedback. A lot of people that I've spoken with around Craigieburn come up and say, hey, what can I do different? What can I do different? The hard part for me to answer that is I'm not in your team, right? I don't see all the training sessions. I see a quarter of a game. So all that I can comment on is that quarter where your best player might be in foul trouble. And all I'm commenting on is basketball. I can't comment on the environment that they're in. Like you guys could have been silly 3 weeks ago where a fight broke out amongst your kids. 3 weeks later, you lose and the kids are united. The feedback would be pretty good from the players and parents, I think. Video, your training sessions and games. Training sessions is something that I've done, but I don't do enough, and it is valuable. When you can hear yourself actually delivering a message and then seeing a kid off to the side who's not paying attention and you've lost him, all of a sudden you're learning, starting to work out, maybe you have to structure your training sessions a little bit differently. Of course, with child safety stuff and that as well, it might be a bit trickier, but I highly recommend that. The next part, when we analyse games, don't highlight the highlights. Don't look for the kid that hits the big jump shot or dribbles around 3 to make a layup. Look for the one where a kid's ran really hard to get back on defense, but they've still scored because it's unrewarded. We want to try and find a way to reward that because 3 weeks down the track, that could be the difference. He could be hustling back to get a deflection, but if he or she doesn't know she's doing that, they're probably going to stop doing it. And as I spoke about before, running when you think you won't get the ball, that can highlight it. So you say, Drew, look, you ran really hard to the corner then. That allowed Pete to go in and make a layup. There's your assist. All right, so don't highlight what would be on Sports Centre. Don't highlight them highlights. Highlight what has happened to your values, where you can, and make little playlists on that. Here's our effort one, guys. We've done really good. Here's our smarter one. We've gone into the key when we knew the ref would blow the whistle. Have the players drive the culture. So this is going to be hard for under 12s, but in every single team, we're in a group now, we could take 3 out. There's going to be somebody who steps up and leads the group. Whether their leadership qualities are great or not, there's always going to be a leader when you have a group, especially of 5 to 10 people. Have them drive it. So constantly ask them, have them set the standards and run drills. So what I would do if I was under 12s is give them 3, 4, 5 drills to pick from. So, all right, I'll let you pick 2. And they'll probably go and pick the 2 that they find the most fun or something like that. All right, what are the standards we're setting now? Okay, the balls aren't going to touch the floor. We're going to be passing it that good. We're going to set a target where we're trying to get there. We have to run really hard. And then all you have to do is sort of enforce it if people are playing up. But I would set 10 minutes aside at training. All coaches have drills that they will do the same, that they do nearly every week or once a fortnight. Let the kids run that. Whether it be that they set some cones up. I don't use cones, but if this was what could get the kids involved together, I'd do it. Is there anything we want to discuss before I move on there?
Just highlighting the not highlighting the highlights. You mean the things that don't. I remember a game at Craigieburn it was, and we were playing Craigieburn, and your brother Ben was in the side. We were leading by a point with 20 seconds to go, and look, he had a shocking game that night. Hadn't played well, and with 20 seconds to go, we had the ball offensively a point up. We took a silly shot, missed. They rebounded and passed the ball out to the centre line for a fast break player. Well, the only thing Ben done right that night, he ran that bloke down and knocked the ball out of court. And that was the thing that gave us time to set up our defence again. And they never got a score up. You know, never got a shot up. But that was the one highlight. But it was a low light for him all night. He knocked the ball out of court, hit the bloke. He's fouled him. He got a foul for it. So he wasn't happy about the foul. But we weren't in any foul trouble at the time. So he had the knowledge to know that we only had 5 team fouls up or something for the half.
Yep.
And we could give 1 or 2 up, mate. You mean? But knocking that ball out won the game for us. And it was a low light for him, but it turned into a highlight for us. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, what I would even add to that though, Pete, is a month before he probably made the same play but didn't quite get there.
Yeah, that's right.
To impact it, still make that a highlight. That's
but
if it's a behaviour that you want to happen when the game's on the line, like you've just spoken about, you've got to bring it up. It can't just be when a kid makes a 3-point shot.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, I said that was a great foul, even though it was a bad one. You mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that he knew he had to make that run, there was no one else there to do it, and he had to make that run, and he did. You mean? And it's the only run he made all night, probably. You mean? But it was when it mattered.
Probably the only thing he did ever.
Hey Tom, I'll just jump in with something that I've heard you say before when you were coaching, and that was when someone was, I forget who it was, but they were having a shocking night for our youth boys, and they said, "Nah, Tommy, get me off, drag me." And I think one quote you said it may not be your night, but it can be your moment. And that's something that I think that's a really cool quote. I don't know if it's yours or you saw it somewhere. Yeah, but I'm like, that's a great comment that I now use with a lot of my players. You may be having an absolute horrible night, but you can still do something special that can affect the game.
you've just prompted me with something that I think is really good. Where we went back to our values. We had a game out at Chelsea where we led. Our best player at the time got fouled out middle of the fourth, and they came back and the game went to overtime. And so we had a thing, like we pressed all the time. But so Big Tyler, who was slowest player in our team, nearly slowest player in the comp. Sorry, I'll take you back a little bit further. We had a pre-season training session outside, and where Locke and I just ran him into the ground, but made it where we were still united. It was actually a really good exercise. But that night, Tyler was at the foul line and they've called a timeout. So they've come out. And what we would do is if Tyler was at the foul line, we would never have him go the last line on the press because he couldn't get back quick enough and they could get the ball in quick enough. So he would get at the top, make him make one pass, that was it, and then he would run back. But he would have time because other guys can try and slow the ball. And so we've said that that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into that defense. And he looked at me and shook his head and he said, I can't do it. And I said, yes, you can. I said, look at the guy next to you. And he had a look and I said, like, what boxes are we ticking? Didn't impact the game, right? But he made his free throw. He gets up in his spot on the press, pressures the ball as much as he possibly can, gets passed back, hustles back. He didn't get a steal. He didn't block the shot, but he allowed someone else to go and make a play. And that's what we highlighted. And he did it when he thought he couldn't. So it's probably doesn't happen without them values there, because I probably wouldn't want to do it. I'll move on. We're nearly done. Oh, we sort of are done. Okay, so with the stories, this is basically impact of a coach. So when a player enters a stadium, you never know what they're exiting from. If you haven't heard something similar to that, please write it down because it is huge, especially with all the stuff that you hear now, mental health and what some kids are going through. It's massive. So when a kid comes to your session and he's not right, then we should be bringing that up. So I can talk about my coaches at the sort of adolescent years of my life were Pete, Brian Mott and Dennis McNamara, who have all had huge impact. So I've got their 16-year-old boy saved by his basketball coach, 17-year-old boy saved by his basketball coach, grown man saved by his basketball coach. That's talking about me. All right, I'm that boy, I'm that man. So the one I'll tell, so when I was 16, we had tryouts. We had tryouts and had a pretty good group that I was good friends with. And we went down to the tryouts not knowing who was coaching, and the coach wasn't sort of up to standard. I didn't have much respect for him. He didn't really have much respect for us. The tryouts were a shambles, and I said, I'm not playing. That day we went to, Dad took me somewhere, and I've had my brother have a go at me because I was sitting there sulking, because what I had decided is I wasn't playing basketball, and that was my outlet. That was any mental health struggles I'd ever had. That was my outlet. So the next morning, I've decided as well that I'm quitting school. I'm not doing that. Sitting on the couch watching the wrestling or something, there's a knock at the door, and I go and open it, and it's my basketball coach standing there and said, go and put the kettle on for me. Said, what are you doing home from school? I said, I'm sick. And he could see straight through me. Said, go and get your computer. We've got to get you an apprenticeship if you're not going to school. Stood by me. Got back into school, got back into basketball, fought tooth and nail. Things sorted itself out. So that was Pete. That was Pete who came around to my house without me knowing, really put me on a straighter path than where I was going. That 17-year-old, I had Brian Mott do a very similar thing. The thing that Brian did that was quite funny is I was about to quit, wasn't enjoying it. had struggles going on outside of basketball, and Brian took me aside and he said, "Give me one more week." I'm like, "What's he talking about? You can't fix, like, I'm hating it." So I turn up to training and we start scrimmaging, and Brian's playing on me. And he makes a play and scores and starts trash talking. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I go down the other end. We get into this little battle for the training session. And at the end of it, my smile was ear to ear. Like, it was fun again. And kept playing. Then the last one is Dennis, who I can go on forever. There's been nights where my mental health illness isn't much of a secret, but at one night where I was really struggling, Ben gets on the phone. All of a sudden, Dennis is at my house in about a minute and a half. So, reason why I've spoken about that is never underestimate the impact you have as a coach. Okay, I've done it as a coach. Players are not in situations now that I wish they were, but we're important people, even though it doesn't seem like that sometimes if we're not winning games. So always remember, when a player enters the stadium, you never know what they're exiting from. Last one, I think this is the last bit. Read this book. Okay, go and get it. It's about New Zealand All Blacks, follows them around. If you haven't read it, read it. It is awesome. So you can sort of read through that there, but I'm sure you guys are sick of listening to me talk. But it's called Legacy by James Kerr. I'd lend you a copy, but one of my friends currently has it, and I'm waiting for ISO to be over to get it back off him. But it's really good. One thing that I will touch on right at the bottom, where it says champions do extra, they sweep the sheds, follow the spearhead, and keep the blue head. Now, that's all metaphors that they go with. But the one about sweep the sheds, so what that is best rugby team in the world, can have best sporting team in the world, can have anyone clean up after them. After every game, they get the brooms out, they get the mops out, they take care of themselves. No one takes better care of an All Black than an All Black, is what they talk about. So we do that now. You will never find my teams at the end of a night having rubbish left at the stadium, toilets being dirty, stuff left in the change rooms, things like that. Take care of yourself. Any questions or anything there? I think that's it. So questions, if there are any, fire ahead, but there's my number, my email address. Feel free to contact whenever. I'll put that photo there. This is a photo that I cherish a fair bit, because you've got Dennis, who I've spoken about pretty highly, stand at the back. You've got me there as an average player. And then there's Jaden O'Sullivan getting some high fives, who's now in our youth league program. I've coached him for 100 games, one of my favourite players. Hopefully he can sit here and tell his stories, how I've looked after him in 10 years. That's the legacy that I hope that I've left with him. So if there's any questions, fire away. Otherwise, thank you for letting me present. But as I said, my number's there, my email's there. If there's anything, training sessions or anything like that, if you give me a bit of notice, I can come down and help out, providing it doesn't conflict with what I have going on.
Awesome work, Tom. I have a statement and a question.
Yep.
I really, really appreciate you coming out to do this, and some of that stuff's fantastic, and specifically to talk about your own issues and share.
Yep.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's great. Thanks.
Yep.
My question is about in your effort section.
Mm-hmm.
I know, watching your teams and coming to a couple of your trainings, your effort piece goes all the way down the bench. So you can come and watch one of your youth league teams, and the noise and the celebrating and the general, I call it teenagers, kids being silly. That's what I call it, right? So carrying on to exaggerate the joyfulness more than probably needs to be. I reckon it's fantastic, and I think it's great. So my question out of that is, what specifically do you do to encourage that? Because being a coach, and I think the majority of people here are coaches of younger children, to get under 10s, under 12s to talk, five, to celebrate, to go, woohoo, we won, or to get anything out of them can be excruciating.
Yeah.
So is there anything specific with your guys to bring that out?
I try. I like what you said there, because there's times at our trainings where it's too much for me, right? So I don't want you thinking that when you've come down to training as well, there's an audience there where we're going to have the show off a little bit more than usual. But and Locke will be able to back me up on this. There's times where I say, hey, this isn't humility. Like, we got to be a bit more humble. But we have a couple of drills that we'll do that are under 8 drills, and we want them to be childish, and we encourage it. And then when it's game night and they're celebrating on the bench, allow it. This is going to sound horrible, but allow it to get past the line before you pull it up. Do you get what I mean? Like, what will be going through your head is, there's probably that one kid who's, he can be a bit silly. Allow him to be, and reward it a little bit.
Yeah.
So when somebody, I had a rule with an under-14s team that I coached a few years ago that was completely stolen from my older brother Shannon, who, when he was coaching my nephew and niece in footy under 8s. And what that was, if anyone kicked a goal, no matter what position you were playing, you had to go and mess up their hair. So you'd have the fullback run into the forward pocket just to rub his hair and try and mess it up as much as possible. So I brought that rule in at basketball. I was coaching VC, and the rule was, if you got fouled and were going to the foul line, you had 4 teammates there helping you up and 4 teammates there messing up your hair. Find ways, and it would get yelled out from the bench. Guy gets fouled, and there's a few that are saying, yeah, well done, well done, well done. And then there's some that are saying, mess his hair up. So to answer your question, allow certain times. It's not a weekly thing that you're going to do in your training session. It's not saying, all right, first 10 minutes, we're going to be as silly as we can be. But there are times where you can allow it. Like Locke comes down and runs a grade 1 PE class. How many times? Like probably 3 times a season for seniors and youth league.
It's usually when we get a bit flat, we get in the middle, we just act like kids, and it just gets them back again.
Yeah.
So sometimes the problem I find, if I tell young kids to behave like kids, they all of a sudden get embarrassed and don't want to.
Yeah, no, that happens. But like, there's times where I'll turn to my bench and a kid's just made an N1 play, and you turn around and go, hey. You should be on the court with him. One of the biggest compliments I ever got playing was from Pete, because I did that. I did something silly. I got dragged. I got sprayed, and then I was on the court cheering, waving a towel not long after. That would be something as well, Drew, that I would video, and I'd be pausing that and I'd be highlighting it, and I've done that. I even did it. We played a practice game against Broadmeadows on court 3, and it was Damon's first year, and it was his first training session, and he's sitting in court 3. I can show the video, and one of our guys makes a 3, and Damon's up on the court celebrating pretty much, with K-Well standing behind him awkwardly, not sure what to do. So again, video your training sessions and see what's allowed. I guess you are going to have some kids that are just too shy, but they need to get to some level, because if you can't communicate when you're playing defense, well, you're not really going to have much of a I don't want to say future, but you're probably not going to play big V. Yeah.
I think as well, Tom, with those shy kids, they don't want to be the odd one out.
Yes, you're right.
So
yeah.
If if you've got a bench of 4 and they've got the shy kid there, if he sees 3 go up, he's like, I'm not going to sit down, I'm going to go up with them.
Yeah.
So I think if you had the majority doing it, I think everyone's going to buy in. You know, those shy kids, I want to be a part of what everyone else is doing. And I think as well, like as you're saying about our youth boys, they're basically over the top as well. I think one really good thing is that, you know, you speak about being humble as well. Remember one year we played a Latrobe team who were all babies, young kids. And, you know, during those games, the cheers and that were never directed towards the opposition. It was only in celebration of what we were doing. So it was never celebrating the mistakes that others are doing, you know, unforced errors. It's all about rewarding our good work. So just cheering when we do good things.
We've had some as well, Drew, where we've set a few challenges. So if we train on court 2, it would be that we want court 3, whoever's on court 3, to come and shut them doors that are in the middle. We had one session where KWell was getting recorded for 60 minutes, and it was, let's try and stuff up their interview. let's make some noise. Allow that to happen. There's a few drills that we do that get it going, but all passing stuff pretty much. But yeah, it's allow them to cross the line before you pull it back is what I'd say. And yeah, it's easier said than done. But even as Locke just said then about the shy kids not wanting to be left out, I've seen it where I can picture the kid. I'd love to say who it was, but where the bench all celebrates and he just stands up and stands still, doesn't clap, doesn't cheer, just didn't want to be the only one sitting on the bench. And I think that's a huge thing. And that comes back to having no gaps on the bench on the seat. It's a little bit harder when you've only got 6 or 7 players because the kid has to get up with you, and that's a bit more, can be a bit silly. But when you've got a bench of 3, 4 or 5 there, yeah, they should be standing up on every, I would say nearly every putback, every M1 play, every steal. That should be celebrated.
And I know when I'm coaching my domestic girls as well, my nieces, if there's foul shots and if I don't have my hands up when they're shooting, I get told about it. There's about 3 or 4 of them will come over and they'll start hitting me in the ribs and say, hands up, Tom Lockie, hands up, hands up. So, you know, things like that if you start doing little things like that, or if they see it, other teams doing it, they'll want to do it too, and they'll make you do it too. So be prepared to be accountable and do it.
Tommy, I think that you 3 guys, you know, you, Drew and Locke, you know, as I put Locke last there, you 3 were always loud and strong on the bench, and you set a fine example by that. You mean, if people watched you, and even when you weren't playing, Tommy, and you were in court 3, sitting up the end there in the stands, you'd have that crowd roaring every home game, mate. I remember it clearly, you know. And the nights you weren't there, it was so quiet. I mean, it really was.
It's what I was best at.
You were really good. Really good.
Playing coach and reffing and spectating, I've always been a good spectator.
Yeah, look, I can't fault any of you 3 from that perspective on the bench. Loud and clear and very encouraging to the team out there on the court. You know, even though you weren't there at the time on the court, you were still cheering on your mates out there, giving them some what-oh, you know what I mean? You
were there a fair bit, Locke.
Yeah.
I can't talk, I was there more, but...
Oh, goodness.
I didn't get a photo.
We might end things on that note then.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me, guys. Again, Tommy. Need anything, yell out.
Thanks, Tommy. Good.
Really appreciate your time, mate, Tom. Thanks for that. And don't be a stranger. If you want to come back again, present again, we'd love to have you on.
Drew stole my thunder last week.
Did he?
Yeah.
On what?
With full court defense.
Oh, do it again. Do it again.
No, we'll have another chat about that.
Yeah, we'll have another chat. We'll see if we get you on another couple of weeks, and
happy to see really happy to see other people's spin on it. I mean, that's my spin. Your spin might be totally
Yeah,
different.
no, it's what I would do. You shouldn't be doing with domestic kids.
Okay.
I've done it. I did it one season when I was coaching domestic, and we won a grand final, but it didn't develop the kids, I don't think. Where yours was much better for 3 years down the track than what mine was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd do it the same as you. If I was coaching domestic, I'd do it the same as you. So
That's what I
or
guess
what
that's
you presented.
platforms for, right? So for
Yeah.
coaches that might not know what they're doing or need to do, that how can I develop my kids the best way?
Yeah.
The Australia way, the Rep way, the Eagles way.
Yeah.
I think
Love it.
I think it's pretty cool. But have a think about it. Love to have you back, mate. And thanks for sharing again.
Cool.
Thanks
Thanks,
again,
guys.
Tommy, and thanks everyone else for coming on board and participating tonight.
Yeah. And
All
Tommy,
right, and we'll see you all next week for another session.